Merry meet. I am your host, Ruan de Heydon. Welcome to Tarot Tuesday for April 20th, 2021. This is Season 1, Episode 10. This is a very special Tarot Tuesday, as we have reached our 10th episode for this season. There has been a lot in the news the last 10 weeks that has come to pass since our first episode. We have seen horrific events play out on the domestic and world stage. My divinatory ally and I have presented a lot of information since we began. Some very frightening predictions, and some of them which we have seen fulfilled. I have to first say that I cannot do what I do without the aid, guidance, and helpfulness of my alliances and Anun. There's a phrase that was once mentioned in a work by Robin Artisan, which follows me to this day. It is something that I have contemplated in my many years of being a witch and traveling the path I have traveled. And I believe that I might have found the answer that I have been looking for all along. And that phrase goes something like this: It is not my hand that does this, but the hand of the master that does this. End quote. Being second generation removed from the full swing of the satanic panic, my childhood was very abusive after I began to manifest certain experiences which led me to the study of witchcraft. It began when I was 7 years old. This was not long after my parents separated and eventually divorced. This ability was to speak to spirits and the gift of prophecy. For me, prophecy, or the ability to divine future events through various means, played out in my dreams at first. I would dream about it, and the end result would play out before me. At first, it started out with deja vu moments. I would see the event play out before me. Not the words, but more like synchronicities. The main points would play out. The end result would be the same. But the weave of the story wasn't always set in stone. There were holes or gaps in the scenes. To me, at first, it was almost a game I tried to express to other people around me. But I was seen as a stupid kid who didn't know what I was talking about. So I quit telling them and decided to find out how to control it more. I discovered Wicca because that was pretty much the only supernatural resource available to me. But I fell in love with the perfect love and perfect trust that was promised to those who embraced the craft, and the possibility of learning more about my gifts. A relative of mine also took an interest in my abilities and began to teach me more about our family and its amazing history. He claimed many things, including our ancestry, or at least what he claimed he was told. It led to Wales, or at least the part of our family that descended from the royalty and nobility of Wales, and a certain set of promises that were made and that we kept alive, of descent from King Arthur and the Merlin of old, but not the legend as it came to be storied, but the real Arthur and Merlin. He claimed to be the pendraig of a certain group of people, some of whom were distant relatives, but knew and practiced a form of special witchcraft. They were part of a coven, which he said was called the Order of the Dragon Kinship, and its purpose was to keep alive the ancient harmonies, the old ways of Yidoniad, the descendants of the old gods, and that one of those gifts was the sight, the gift of seeing and hearing what others could not, and the ability to make magic happen. Whether my immediate relatives knew or not, I never knew. They probably still think I'm a liar, and that is fine. He told me that when he died, I would be the new Pendraig, and I would have to reform the dragon kinship, because it was like a war band, Arthur's round table. Because no one else in my family in my generation had the sight, or would have been averse to what he had to teach, it was on me. He said that when he died, I would inherit two things: his Masonic ring and a very special ring, a red dragon rampant, signet encased in silver. He claimed that it was something he inherited and to cherish it always. I have been called a liar, but I did eventually receive in the mail from a relative in Wales my relative's ring. A ring I thought I had that had been destroyed or lost when he died a few years ago. But indeed, I now wear it upon my hand. Is anything else he said true? I really will never know, but I have found various family lines through the art and science of genealogy and DNA tests. I have failed to discover if the knowledge he passed on was true or not, or something he concocted, but I do indeed have the second sight and the ability to help others. Why do I mention all of this? It is because of the gift of prophecy. As I grew up, being forced to embrace Christianity, I found the book of Revelations to match up with many of my dreams. This led to a thirst to study theology and the history of Christianity and the church. I needed to know why I had these dreams of destruction. So I studied every prophet of the Bible and of other religious traditions, and I saw many commonalities. Amongst each other, and in my dreams, I read Nostradamus, Edgar Cayce, Madame Blavatsky, and others. As I grew to dislike Christianity more and more, and was abused more and more because of my obsession with witchcraft, I tried really hard to throw off my family by embracing the study of Christian doctrine. I watched the 700 Club and everything I could find: Catholicism, Protestantism, and the like. I was introduced to the LDS Church when my dad married my first stepmom, who was a member of the church. I read the Book of Mormon and attended church a few times. I loved the fitting in because I was not fitting in at home or among my new stepbrothers. There were four. Eventually, my father and her divorced, and he left the church, which meant I had to leave the church. After that, it was back to my witchcraft. This time, it went hardcore. And I did a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't have done. I began to steal to obtain the wisdom, to control my gifts, and to find the love I desperately needed from the goddess and God. I knew how much trouble I would get in, but I thought I was fighting for my right, or what I thought to be my right, to believe and practice the religion of my heart. I didn't, because I was a child. My father and I began a war, and neither of us were backing down. The more I embraced witchcraft, the more fundy he became. By fundy, it is an early term among witches for what is now called Christian nationalism, and was the heart of the evangelical movement. This, of course, is the backbone of the Republican Party. My father became everything that was opposite of what the message of Jesus was about. If Christianity was what my dad practiced and preached and beat into me, I wanted nothing to do with it. This has indeed created a hatred for most of Christianity, inflamed by my study of history, and completed with where I am now, as a fairy traditionalist. The reason I bring this up is that the gift of prophecy was never mine. It had to do with allies I had inadvertently made with the unseen, including my ancestors. For indeed, many ancestors came to me, including many a Welshman or woman. This grew my love for all things Brythonic, even though I suck at the language. The ancestors that came to me, I found out were mentioned by a specific group of people, and they also claimed to have kept the ancient harmonies alive. They were the Wynn family, and the tradition that was said to have kept that wisdom alive was Edwin Wynn, and the Church of the Twitha Teg. Was my relative a member of this group? They claimed they didn't know who he was, so I felt dejected when they had their shake-up and have petered out to nothing. Much of their information, you could tell, was cobbled together from various sources, and even I know that the Welsh use was horribly done. But could their history be right? Could this Taliesin figure be a relative who was my relative and knew and worked with, even if in secret. I also will never know this, but these Wind ancestors taught me a lot. They helped me to understand that the unseen world has many spirits, and remember the ancient harmonies, and that try to keep as much of it alive as possible because they would need to return before too late. Then I discovered Robin Artisan. And it has seemed through the years that he has been one step ahead of me in his changing and evolving life way. It was not until he published on Carl Gwynn and created the Circle of the White Stag that it all came together. And I think it is because we are near a singularity. Because the beliefs and interpretations of revelations have created the circumstances through fear or through desire to fulfill these horrific prophecies. Mankind is heading on a collision course. And it all comes down to belief. Enough people believe in an end time scenario that they have literally created the conditions to bring much of it to pass. Some secretly have attempted to bring it to pass because they have a death wish and hope beyond hope that Jesus will return to vindicate their abuses. This is what led to the creation of this show, Tarot Tuesday. My prophecies were never mine. They were my allies, using me to get this all out. They chose to use the medium of the tarot to give me some control. But they have also kept me humble by jumbling my memory so that in order to open the flow of information, that I need to use the book or its keywords to open the floodgates of communication with them over there, to us over here. And the events in the news is the confirmation. Fairy traditionalism is the Bendeth Mamai, the blessing of the mothers. We are given a chance to toss off the millennia of the great lie. Now, whether it will be after the ravishing hunger has been sated with a near complete annihilation of the planet and its life, or we will finally turn our hearts back to the ancient harmonies and pay the debt that is due, is another story. Prophecy is never set in stone. The fates weave their threads, and if you are but given a glimpse and have enough allies, you can change fate, if you are willing to pay the price. Fate is wound together like the neurons in the brain. When you make, say, do, or feel a certain way, neurons move and fire to create new connections. Fate is very much the same way. If you but follow the nodal points, you can intuit or predict what the next nodal point is. This means that nothing is truly set in stone, and sometimes someone with these gifts just has to speak. They are urged on by their own allies. And so this is why I have created Tarot Tuesday. It is my means of bringing out my message in a safe and healthy arena. And so with this being the 10th episode of Season 1 of Tarot Tuesday, I wanted to take a look back at what brought me to this point to do these videos, to present what I have to present, and to show that even though I was told certain things about my family history, and some of it seems to be semi-legit, that doesn't make me any different than any other person out there. Anyone can utilize or learn how to use these gifts, to be able to speak with them over there, to be able to intuit the flow of time. All it takes is an open heart, a willing mind, and a courageous spirit. Because the great lie has infiltrated every aspect of our lives, and its end result will be found in those who would wish to continue the great lie to its fruition. They say, so that Jesus can return. I say, so that they can sit there and annihilate the rest of us. Because who is supposed to inherit the kingdom of God but his faithful? And what happens to those who do not follow their scriptures? Death and annihilation and punishment. And we wonder why that these groups of people harp down on the rest of us and try to control and manipulate us. We wonder why the world is so fractured. It's because they will not heal. They are the ones that are at issue. Because heaven or high water, they will destroy anything in their power to get their goal. And their goal is to have complete power over this earth. If you don't believe me, look in Revelations. Look to every Christian who sits there and talks about the rapture in the end times. Now, whether these prophecies are really true or not is up to belief. Because so long as people push, there's going to be an edge towards those scenarios. We see right now in the news, we are near nuclear warfare, whether the government is willing to admit it or not. We see the buildup at the barriers of Ukraine with Russia. They could sit there and drop a bomb at any moment, which will springboard a whole retaliation of European Union with Russia, China, North Korea. But these things aren't new. We've seen this during the Cold War, because these are exactly the situations that certain individuals would like to bring about, either because they fear that it will happen or because deep inside in their subconscious, they want it to happen. And so, in light of that, let us begin our course for today. The cards I picked. The first card that I picked is the Five of Wands. Now, the Five of Wands is about conflict, disagreements, competition, tension, and diversity. In the Five of Wands, 5 men appear to be fighting each other, using their wands as weapons. However, on closer observation, their wands are raised but not striking or injuring anyone. It is as if there is no real purpose or outcome in this chaotic scene other than to create conflict and sow discord amongst the group. Each man wears a different outfit, symbolizing their diverse backgrounds and belief systems, and suggesting that, because of their differences, they cannot find harmony and common ground with one another. We see this domestically and internationally. This is what this is talking about. The buildup for heavy conflict. Everyone's playing a pissing contest, international-wise, and that's exactly what it is. Because the end goal is destruction, control, and slavery. That's what we're leading up to. And we can sit there, we can push it in the corner saying, oh, this can't happen, this isn't going to happen. Or we can stand up and say, we are done with the lies, we are done with the threats. The second card that I picked was the Queen of Swords. The Queen of Swords is unbiased judgment, clear boundaries, direct communication, and independence. The Queen of Swords sits on a stone throne decorated with a cherub, representing the Queen's softer side, and butterflies representing transformation. She faces towards the future, with her left hand raised as if to receive, and her right hand she holds a sword up high and straight, representing her desire to find the truth in all matters. As with other sword court cards, clouds accumulate in the sky, and a strong wind that passes through the trees symbolizes the ongoing nature of change. So with the Queen of Swords, we see a buildup of discord. That's what these clouds are. Clouds are made from water. They're made from accumulated water through the cycle of the sun, evaporating it, and it collects together. Rain is tears. Tears is emotion. This queen sees that there's change coming. And instead of looking back, she looks towards the future. And it's something that we all should do. With this buildup of tensions, within the United States and within almost every country, every government in the world at this time. We have never been more disconnected from each other than we have been since World War II. And that also feeds into the great lie, because they believed that they were bringing the 1,000-year reign of God on earth, which they personified as Hitler. But with this going on, we must look to the future, and the future I picked was the sun. Now, many people have a positive interpretation of this card. And in fact, I will read what is the usual interpretation of the symbolism inherent in this card. This is usually a card of positivity, fun, warmth, success, and vitality. The Sun Tarot card radiates with optimism and positivity. A large, bright sun shines in the sky, representing the source of all life on Earth. Underneath, there's usually 4 sunflowers growing tall above a brick wall, representing the 4 suits of the minor arcana and the 4 elements. In the foreground, a young naked child is sitting on top of a calm white horse. The child represents the joy of being connected with your inner spirit, and his nakedness is a sign he has nothing to hide and has all the innocence and purity of childhood. The white horse is also a sign of purity and strength. Now, that is the typical interpretation of this card. But underlying it, and one that most people do not see, goes back to the great lie. Who sits on a white horse in Revelations? Jesus. Or death. Sometimes they're seen to be one and the same. And it fits with this interpretation because astrotheology states that Jesus was indeed the sun. The 12 apostles were indeed the 12 signs of the zodiac. Now, the sun can also mean, in these post-nuclear times, the glaring ball of white light that happens when a nuke goes off. The white horse is the rays of wind and radiation that sweeps through the land like a horse in battle, like that scene in Lord of the Rings, that wisp where the sun lays all down because there's nothing to hide. Innocence is gone. It's not that the child is innocent. It's just mankind was innocent until the bomb drops. Now, there are no innocents. There's only survival. And who brought that to be? But the very same people who tout the superiority of Abrahamic concepts, the very same people that work together to create the nuclear weapons. So, I worry. I worry for the future. I've seen death and destruction since I was 7 years old. And we have seen the slow incrementation towards these nodal points. Now, there is a way to stop this. There is always a chance to stop this. If we but open our eyes and see what's really going on here. But too many people are wrapped up in the lie. Too many people believe it, even if subconsciously, that the world will end in a ball of fire. Now, what happens after that, whether it's Jesus returning or whatever, the only ending I see is caused by mankind destroying itself and the planet in its endless pursuit of raping the earth, pillaging the people, and causing others to suffer. So what needs to die? our whole civilization, because it was all built on a lie. And now people will tout, Adam, or Ruan, how can you say these things? What proofs do you have? All you have to do is look around you. All you have to do is be open to seeing the interconnected weaves of fate and how it comes into this great tapestry that we call life. We know, according to quantum mechanics, that belief is a very powerful force. And when you reach critical mass, there's always an end result. For instance, our idea of the 99th monkey effect, the experiment that was created to teach monkeys how to wash sand off of fruit. Now, they started on one island. These monkeys were not interconnected with any others, but it reached a critical mass, and eventually all the monkeys in this area that they did this test had started doing it. And it's the same thing with belief. When enough people believe that there's an ending of an age or the creation of a new one, a fire, death, and destruction, naturally, that is what you'll have. Because just like Terry Goodkind's novels, the Seeker series, what is the wizard's first rule? Mankind is stupid. They'll either believe something because they wish it was true or they fear it to be true. And it's the same thing with the idea of prophecy. Enough people believe a certain view of things, it'll bring into pass that to be. And so we've got to go pre-prophecy, pre-civilization, to really get a glimpse at what the ancient harmonies really are. The whole purpose of community was so that no one would hunger, no one would thirst. And what we have now is the complete opposite. And when did this really start? Well, I can tell you, it was post-Indo-European, because wasn't that group of people the ones who emphasized the importance of the warrior god, conquering and stealing and raping and pillaging? The hero's journey? That's when it started. And it just built up ever since. The need to take and take at anyone's expense is part of the great lie. And the great lie has been written in all of our books. Every single one of them. Our greatest stories is about death, destruction, and that one person who will save the day for everybody. But what if I tell you that no one is here to save the day? No one is here to save you. Only we together can save each other. And so this means we've got to toss off a lot of things that we've held dear and true as a species, as a world, and as each individual nation. We've got to realize that we are living precariously upon this earth, and that for everything we take or learn, there is a price to be paid. There is always a price to pay. Some people are willing to pay the price. Others are willing to put the price on somebody else. In war, everyone suffers. Everyone. Civilian or officer. Everyone suffers. And so for many weeks, I have spoken on my Tarot Tuesdays about events rising on the edge of the horizon, of war with Russia and China, North Korea and Iran, enrichment of uranium, and death and famine. Are you ready? Are you truly ready for what is coming? And it's coming. And I've said it was coming. And I've said it's been coming since I was 7 years old, when all my friends and family called me a stupid kid. But if you should look through my journals or my previous posts online back before the days of Facebook and MySpace, you will see that I have always said the same exact message in the same exact way. And it's because I've seen it since I was 7. We are on a collision course. I truly believe that the life path, as exemplified in Ankara Gwyn and other books that are in the process of coming out, is our only means of survival in the longest term. Now, am I saying everyone should jump on board the Circle of the White Stag train and ride into oblivion? No. Not everyone is going to be called to the path that I and many others teach and talk about. Not everyone's even going to, after embracing many of the concepts, not everyone's going to be willing to take that next step, to be a walker between the worlds, to be able to stand before the king and queen of fairy and speak with their servitors and truly speak and make covenants and pacts. Not everyone is made for sorcery. But of those of you who have, gear up. Things are going to get pretty interesting. And so now is the time to really plan out in the long term. For just as the Queen of Swords says, it is no longer looking towards the past, she is now looking towards the future. Because there is no beginning or ending of an age, just events along the way. And because belief does create reality, we are kind of stuck at a conundrum, a singularity. And so it is with my truly deeply held beliefs that the reason that paganism came back when it did, how it did, and has risen from the ashes of false narratives and satanic panic beliefs and has reached critical mass is because, yes, indeed, the great war of revelation is coming, but not exactly how they've written it. Indeed, in their book of Revelations, Revelations 12, actually, there's a story of the woman crowned with stars, standing upon the moon, travailing in pregnancy, and a great red dragon with 7 heads and 7 horns and 7 diadems on each head. And now they claim that Satan, their god of evil, is the red dragon who shall persecute the church, which is symbolized by so many things. But see, you never take the truth as written by the victors. You got to look between the lines. And as a pendragon myself, as a voice of the dragon, my understanding of what the red dragon symbolizes is, in fact, the earth herself. For even in the oldest tales of Sumeria, the dragon or sea serpent was Tiamat. Leviathan, as mentioned in scriptures, was a sea creature, but she's also an earth creature. For the waters of the world indwell all of us. Where do you think we get our water from? Especially if you live out in the country. You get it from the earth. Those telluric tides undergird everything about us. The earth is indwelled with a spirit of its own. And we call her the Great Mother. She is the earth goddess, the earth indweller. From her our wandering souls come. She is indeed the red dragon. And in fact, in Welsh, the Ydregok's name is Dewey. Now, people say that Dewey and David Sant, or Saint David, two terms for the same thing. But why did they name the red dragon Dewey? In Indo-European languages, Dewey is connected to the Sanskrit Deva or Devi or God. So the red dragon is indeed a god. He is not Satan in the way you would think he is, for even that story has been mistold. Who is Lucifer? Lucifer was evidently. He sought to overthrow the throne of God and set himself upon its place. But what if I told you that Lucifer, in truth, pre-existed the story of Jehovah? Well, Jehovah was a storm god, very connected originally before the myths created by the Abrahamic peoples. He was a storm god. He was a war god, very much like Thor, traveling through the sky. But when a certain group of people grasped onto this idea and started claiming that their God was the only God, this is just when gods start to eat gods and they take upon their forms. How many names of God are there among the Jewish people? There's a lot. You know why? Because this Jehovah ate them. Very much like the story of Uranus and Gaia. Or even Rhea and Cronus. Zeus and Hera. There's a cycle there. The red dragon, of which I sport and which I speak for, is the earth herself. And so, as a fairy traditionalist, it is my true belief that the books put out by Robin Artisan came out when they needed, because we see a progression, a growing up for the pagan worldview. It started out with Wicca and was very benign, little shaky at first with its witch wars. Then it progressed and slowly became more mainstream. And then we have people going for Celtic reconstructions and really getting to the heart of the material. And that really started building deeper relationships and personal covenants with the entities that we work with. And of course, on the other springboard, we also had the more traditional witches. You know, those of the branch like Taliesin of Ytwiliteg fame, of Robert Cochrane, you know, of Austin Osman Spare. We had this other branch going on, which is usually called traditional witchcraft, and is more of the covenant kind, the sorcery. And we see this travail down. And now, with Robin Artisan's books at Caro Gwyn, we return to an older way of thinking, a truer way of thinking, that the world literally is alive with spirits. Fairy traditionalism is a neo-animistic, not a pre-original animistic, because we can never get that back. Because we shape and mold and change, and history changes, and we change each other. But we are on the verge of a new growth. And the reason is this age that has been manufactured is about ready to go out the window. Whether it's in the age of Aquarius, fairy, or whether it's a new world order or any of that. It doesn't matter, because those are all conglomerations of stuff that there's no real backing to in either which way, because it all goes back to indoctrination by civilization. I think, in the end, We are going to disband our civilizations. We are literally going to become a one world order, a world where there really is only one authority. And it's within you and your alliances with them over there. All other authority can kick rocks, because it's time that we take back our sovereignty. It is said that the motto for a Dregok is the red dragon inspires impetus. The red dragon leads the way. And I say, it is time for the Earth Mother to definitely ride. The church, which is symbolized by the pregnant woman in the wilderness in Revelations, that's always been Rome and all of her descendants, all of them. And it all started with one person, or at least what's been attributed to one person. Every social ill we currently have going for us within the Christian arena can always come back to Saint Paul. In Jewish tradition, the headship of that church went to not Paul and Peter and Rome's BS. It went back to Jerusalem with Jesus' brother, if these characters do in fact exist or had existed. Pauline Christianity is the sin. You know, in scriptures where it says that those who claim to be Jews but are not Jews, that's what they're talking about. The Christian church, from its origins within the Catholic faith and all of its derivatives, have gone astray. The apostates. And they wouldn't have it any other way, because they've used revelations against the pagans, because the pagans have always been seen as being connected to a dragon, who is the symbol of the serpent of the earth, the symbol of wisdom and power and strength. Even among the crowning of British royalty, when Charles was invested as the Prince of Wales, what did Queen Elizabeth tell him? From this you gain your authority, from the red dragon that is Britain. Now, am I saying Prince Charles and the British royal family are the Mab Darogan, the child of prophecy that will go ahead and free the Welsh from English oppression? No, there's hardly any Welsh blood left in them. But I can say that the descendants of Dawn will rise again. The Cymru, the people of Cymru, will rise. Am I speaking for all of them? No. I can only speak as one of the sons of Melgwyn Pendraig, who was the nephew of Arthur ap Muirig, the true King Arthur. I am but one. There should be many Pendraigs, many voices of the dragon. We all should rise. Rise and do what? Do what we have been doing, living our lives, irrespective of what some pumped up preacher or political sycophant wants to thrust upon us. It is time. And that is what this tarot reading is about today. It is time to rise up, put on your diadem, and ride the dragon that is the earth. Return to sovereignty, your own and the sovereignty of the Earth Mother herself. So, what is the voice of the dragon? What is Les Threg, the book I write? It is what I would tell anyone if I had a warband, if Adoniad would rise, if the order of the dragon kinship that my grandfather talked about was to rise and gather together, what would I say? Will be put in that book. And if you are a patron on Patreon, you will get the first look at it. You will get that because you have believed in me. You have helped pay for this ministry. And so I say, with all the love in my heart, prepare. There's a lot of shaking going on. May you never hunger. May you never thirst. May the good neighbors always, always, always be with you. If you would like to know more about my ministry and the stuff I do here at A Dragon's Voice and wish to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/Ruan de Heydon. I have various tier levels. Those who are patrons get all my services for no extra charge. Of course, I could always use an extra penny. My lowest tier level is $5. My highest is $20. For 1 cup of coffee, you can help me in getting the word out there about what is to come and what is coming and what is literally on our doorsteps. If you would like to sit there and follow what I have to say, you can easily, while it still is around, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay it this time, but you can go to ruandeheydon.com, where I have my blog, where I have all my social media links, and where I have all my services listed, and there will be so much stuff coming up. So keep an eye out. And for those who didn't see my other videos that I put out for like A Dragon's Voice, my On Carl Gwyn study group, or even a previous episode of Tarot Tuesday, you can find and have access to all those videos if you are a patron. My stuff is geared for my patrons because they believe in what I have to say. They've seen what I can do. They've experienced what I've had to get out there. And, of course, I have to give a shout out to my patrons. To VJ, to Jill, Elaine, and God, Amy, and Dwayne. Thank you. You guys are almost like my little war band. My little dragon kinship, as my grandfather would call it. And I thank you. But of course, these services aren't just for them. These services are for the world. These services are for the world. And if you find joy, comfort, or information from these, do not hesitate to reach out. Because I do teach. I do guide. I provide pastoral care and healing. I provide these videos. I do study groups. And I am here to serve the people of the world, just like any Merlin or Pendraig would ever do. And so, may you be well. For those who don't know, Fridays I do my Anne Carl Gwyn study group with my patrons. Those are a patron-only event. If you wish to be involved in that, of course, go to my Patreon. Once again, that's patreon.com/Ruan de Heydon. And on Sundays, if all these are on 4 o'clock Pacific time, on Sundays I do A Dragon's Voice. We are currently going on Oath Phrase 4 of the Oath of Belonging, which all fairy traditionalists eventually taken to become a fairy traditionalist. Not everyone who joins the guild will become a fairy traditionalist, and that's fine, and I agree with that. But if you want to know a little bit more about the Oath of Belonging as I see it, go ahead, hop on over. I also have a Discord. If you would like to get involved in that Discord, send me a message either here or anywhere on my website. Let me know. I have a open arena for everybody now. It's not just for patrons. I've got, of course, special sections that are for patrons because of the material that they pay for. And so, thank you for being here. I hope that I conveyed the message that I was meant to convey in the way I was meant to convey it, with their blessings, of course. And so, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be.